right, guys, we're
Try that
back,
again.
and hopefully there shouldn't be anything in loop. I don't know what the hell happened there, guys. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. That intro screwed everything up, and hopefully there'll be a link or somebody will try to figure out that we're just doing everything again. In any event, this is an impromptu live stream. Professor, we're going to try this again. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. We had planned to do something else, which will be revealed later at a later date. But as it turned out, our third person in the trio couldn't make it, so we figured we would at least try to talk about something impromptu. And uh, I figured that we would talk about AT&T, AT&T, and AT&T in particular. The news that AT&T is actually causing a great deal of they've been somewhat controversial because they've I'm sorry here, my screen is locked. That doesn't help. There we go. Because AT&T has they decided to go and for their entire 2021 slot has been is it's moved to their to HBO Max. Now this has ruffled a lot of feathers, and in particular, it really pissed off a Dune director. And I showed the link here, and I'm gonna try to bring it up. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, just a moment here. Okay.
While you're looking for that, I think
Yeah.
that one of the absolute best quotes was from Christopher Nolan. He says,
Yeah.
all these directors and movie stars and producers and everybody went to bed one night thinking that they worked for the greatest motion picture company and woke up to realize they actually worked for the worst streaming service.
Yeah. Yeah.
I died just a little inside of that one because it was freaking hysterical.
Yeah. No, I know it, and that's uh, yeah. Here's the article, guys, and Ed Brewer, I agree with you. Yeah, it's much better. I apologize for that. Um, Tehillim, yeah, we're not talking about Challenge of the Super Sons, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. I haven't read it yet. We'll get to that. But right now we're talking about the Dune director Denis Villeneuve. He blasts HBO Max, and I'm just gonna put it up here on the screen. And oops, there we go. Now this is a guy who is awfully pissed off at Warner Brothers, and well, he's pissed off. I mean, he says here, and therefore, even though Dune is about cinema and audiences, AT&T is about its own survival on Wall Street. With HBO Max's launch a failure thus far, AT&T decided to sacrifice Warner Brothers' entire 2021 slate in a desperate attempt to grab the audience's attention. So, all right. I'm going to start off, Professor, because I know you've got your own opinion on this, but I just want to give my 2 cents worth here, and I got to tell you that I am a small city lawyer, but I got to tell you, this reeks of incompetence on Warner Brothers' part, on AT&T's part. I don't know how you can screw this up. I don't know how you can't, as a common courtesy, when you got a major movie slate, give notice to all these directors and actors about a major move like moving all your movies to a streaming service, HBO Max. They all should have been. They should have had at least a series of meetings and just proper notice given to everyone. It's one thing for AT&T to go ahead and lay off a third of a minuscule editorial staff or the DC Comics publishing division. Okay, fine. I personally thought, okay, you're disrespecting, you're putting comic books on a hierarchy, they're on the low levels, but I would have thought that multi-billion-dollar movie deals with big-time directors, I would have thought that they would have given them the common courtesy of a reach around while you're banging them. What, or you know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, just common sense. Even if you're going to screw them over, at least a little bit of some recognition that you're behind them and you're up to no good. Um, I, I can't, I don't see a positive for AT&T on this. Do you agree or disagree?
Hard to say. But first off, I do always appreciate a Full Metal Jacket reference when I hear one. Oh man. But yeah, so I think that at the very least, as a common courtesy. Now, is this illegal? There are directors and producers screaming fraud, screaming, dissent and screaming, let's do a lawsuit and stuff. But I don't know. For me, I see that when people start yelling and screaming like that, they don't actually have a case. And they're hoping that their yelling and screaming will garner some attention from people who would have a case. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that a lawsuit is coming up about this. Do you?
Well, I've heard different things from different I've heard different things from different people. Well, not different. I haven't heard not heard personally. I've heard rumors just through various YouTube channels, which of course just means nothing. It's just rumor and innuendo. But I have to tell you that with all these, when I was listening to when I listened to Grace Randolph, and I know that you don't really particularly like her, and I listened to John Campia, and they talk about how complex these formulas are for some of these contracts with these movie stars, and when I hear that they talk to Gal Gadot, and I understand you told me they only contacted her like what, a day before or
Ha-
something,
Half an hour
half an
before, yeah.
hour before, and I understand that she's still getting paid $10 million or something because, I mean, a lot of these actors have got clauses in their contract that gives them a share of the box office, and so they have to work out a formula that if you're, and I understand, according John Campia had indicated that apparently they worked on a formula of like 50%, like they halved everything on the formula, and then they're basing it on streaming, on some sort of formula or algorithm for the streaming services. And this is why I thought that they had put a lot of thought into this, and they must have surely they must have negotiated with the very people they have to satisfy. But to find out, when you got a director of Denis Villeneuve's stature, uh, when he's not aware of this, I mean, that just blows me away. This is Trump level stupidity. It really is. I mean, just Trump level stupidity. I mean, there's just no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, I don't know what's the silver lining here, because I don't, unless people are all gonna. I mean, HBO Max has been across the board. It's been somewhat It's not been exactly a success, and I don't know, man. I don't know. Are you gonna get HBO? We don't even get HBO Max in Canada.
We can't get HBO Max in Canada. So it's only available in the United States. Yeah, the whole thing is a cluster from beginning to end. Um, so here in Canada, at least, it's different than the rest of the countries because of the kind of lock that kind of supersedes the NATO. Um, what is it called? Oh, what the heck is it called?
The
The
UN
Federal Trade Agreement. No, the Federal Trade
oh, the
Agreement that we have,
free trade agreement.
North American
Yeah,
NAFTA, North
NAFTA.
American Free Trade Agree yeah, it's a NAFTA thing so that Rogers and Bell, which are 2 huge cable companies and phone companies coincidentally, so communications companies, everything has to come through them. So even if I wanted to get if you and I, we're both here in Canada, if if we wanted to get, um what's it called? WWE Network. We
Yeah.
can't just get the WWE Network online. We actually have to get Bell or Rogers and then get a package in order to purchase that. So we have to buy a certain level and then we can buy H WWE Network. I'm all over the place with that because it was impromptu. I wasn't expecting to get into that. But here, I can explain if John Campia didn't explain it enough, and I don't watch him, in order to easily explain this, then I don't know that he explained it well, in my opinion. Basically, these guys have not a backroom deal, a back contract deal, a down contract deal.
Hmm.
So they get a certain amount of money. Okay, that is really distracting what you're doing. It's super distracting. Fix the thing.
I am. It's fixed.
Okay, stop. It looks good. So, like, I'm trying to close my eyes to do this. So they've got a down contract deal, which basically means that, hey, this is how much money you're going to get for making this movie or directing the movie or starring in the movie or whatever. So it's a way to say, like, here's a commission. If the movie does well, then you'll get paid that way, but I don't have to pay you so much up front. It's dirty. It's very dirty, right? But there's the chance that that if the movie does well, then you could potentially make more. But at the end of the day, it's just a way of saying, like, oh, look, if you're really going to believe in this movie, right? So if you believe in this movie, then you're going to make a lot of money that way, as opposed to just, yeah, here's your money, right? So that right there to me is dirty. But then on top of that, that's only based on the way that it performs in the theaters. That's in the clause,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a provision in the clause for your contracts. So when all of a sudden they find out, okay, they delayed the movie by a year. That's okay. Let's go. We're ready now. And then they say, no, instead we're going to release it now and we're going to release it in theaters and on HBO Max. That's where you done them really dirty because now you're actually digging into their contracts. You're actually changing, not even changing the contract. It's like maybe you can explain it better. It's dirty because this is what you promised them, but then you're taking that away from them. It's still there, but the means to get that is gone. It's like, here's a car, drive down the road, but I'm going to keep the wheels.
Yeah. No, it's just misleading. I mean, arguably it's I mean, it's arguably misrepresentation. It's arguably it's not I wouldn't say it's an error in substantiatus and that goes to the heart of the contract, but when you're on the subject matter of the contract is box office performance, I mean it's and you're deciding that you're going to cut off the theatrical
See, they're
content.
not even doing that. They're saying, "Oh, yeah, it's gonna be in the theater," but now they also have a choice to see it at home at the exact
Yeah.
same day, the exact same time. Now, mind you, for Gail Gadot and Patty Jenkins, they don't really have a horse in this race because they already received their money, and in their contract, because they're both big stars, because Wonder Woman already performed, well, the first one, so now with Wonder Woman 1984, they're like, of course this is going to reach $1 billion. So we're going to give you the down contract deal as though it already made $1 billion. So they get their money regardless. There is no change to the contract. You know, saying whether it airs in theaters or at home, or they just go around and start handing out DVDs to everybody. They're still going to make the same money. But the people at like Dune, for instance, no, they don't get that. They actually had their legs chopped off at the knees. So that's really not right. It's not going to help with the merchandising. I don't know if they get any cut from the merchandising.
Well, and not only that, how you treat. There was an expression that what is that? I think it's even in the Bible at some point. How you treat the lowest person among you is how you will be judged. Well, in this case, AT&T is treating their top brass like garbage. They're treating their top tier. Their directors, they're even their top people. They're keeping in the dark. It's like a mushroom farm. They're keeping them all in the dark and feeding them BS. And it's just even if you're what you say could absolutely be correct, that they're not technically breaching any contract, technically speaking. I'll give you that, but at a minimum, it's a good faith argument. You
Yeah.
gotta. It's an act of good faith, and for anybody who's going to be working for AT&T or Warner Brothers in the future, I mean, usually good faith. A lot of contract law is just good faith contracts. A lot of stuff you take on good faith, and when you lose that good faith, you lose that goodwill. I mean, what's left? And not only that, it's not as if AT&T doesn't have an example that they can look to. I mean, they can look to Disney. I mean, Disney's taken a some big hits too. I mean, the pandemic's impacting everyone. What bothers me about AT&T so much is that every bad thing that everybody said about AT&T has is pretty much been verified. And that's what's so disappointing about this is that they're sinking to the lowest perception of them. I mean, even I defended them. I mean, when we because part of this discussion is going to be about comic books too. And you and I have had discussions with Trevor and other people, other fellow YouTubers that, well, maybe AT&T it's not going to be so bad when they take over DC Comics. Maybe even though they're corporate minded, we might get some good stories out of it, and maybe we'll get some legacy characters out of it. And I got to tell you, this really disheartens me immensely. It just really uh, I don't know. Maybe am I reading too much into this or what?
No, I don't think you are, and you're hitting on a lot of really important points, I should say. So this is in really bad faith. It's one of those situations where I technically didn't break the rules. It's just that the standards have always been that movie theaters always have the initial monopoly on the movies. There's nothing that says that. I mean, it's Warner Brothers can do whatever they want with their movies. They can choose not to release it. I'm going to give the example of a Richard Corman film by Fox, the original Fantastic Four movie that no one has ever seen in theaters. And the only way that you've ever been able to see it is on bootleg. I think it might be available on YouTube right now, but it was a Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah,
Back when I was a kid, I had to hunt this thing down at a flea market, and it was great at the time, but it would never see the light of day because it was just
yeah,
the idea of we need to keep the contract. So Marvel said in the contract every 5 years we have to have some kind of a Fantastic Four movie, and then this way we can keep the property rights. If we don't fulfill that one portion of the contract, then the rights immediately revert back to Marvel. So they made a movie. They hired Roger Corman. They gave him a $1 million budget exactly and said, make a movie. He did. For the time, it was great. The early 90s. It was great.
yeah.
And then they said, yeah, we're not going to release this though. We fulfilled the contract and now we're good. So Roger Corman was pissed. He still wants to this day wants to make a documentary about the one movie that he made that wasn't allowed to be seen by the public. And the actors that were there, they didn't get to, have that time. So this is that everybody got paid. But the one part that you assume is that people are going to be able to see the movie. So now all these people giving this great performance and whatnot, they're expecting that there's going to be a chance that this could be the movie that breaks the sci-fi barrier and the comic book ish barrier in the movie industry. Maybe they're going to recognize this. Maybe they're going to say something great, saying maybe we're going to get some kind of an award for this because I mean, Dune is my favorite sci-fi property. I would take Dune over Star Wars any day of the week. And
Yeah.
people know how passionate I am about Star Wars. I am that much more passionate about Dune. It is the greatest sci-fi novel at the very least, ever written, in my opinion. I love it. And the idea that these guys don't get that out now, it's reprehensible. But here's the thing. The AT&T, just like Warner Brothers, the most appropriate thing to do to avoid this PR, I don't really even consider this a nightmare right now. To to save face at the very least would be, yeah, to let them know what's going on. It would also, let these directors, let these producers, all of them, not just some of them, not just your favorites, know what's going on. Because if they did this to Zack Snyder right now is saying, "Oh yeah, there's a good chance that part 1 of my Justice League movie will actually get to theaters now. It'll be in the IMAX theater, so you'll be able to see that." And oh, and by the way, Batman's going to drop the F bomb in it. And it's like, dude, why are you giving the limelight to this guy who's not doing a proper superhero movie? I don't know who these characters are, but
Yeah.
it's like going to these countries that don't have these licenses, like China and Turkey, and who do the fake Superman and the fake Spider-Man movies and whatnot. This is like making a fake Batman movie and saying, "Oh, this is Batman. Look, and he's out there. Yeah, I follow you guys. I'm killing everybody. Boom, boom with guns." Like, stop. So, but Zack Snyder, they don't want him to go away someplace. Patty Jenkins. They don't want her or Gal Gadot to get mad and say, "We're not going to do, part three of Wonder Woman because it's a big property for them." Villeneuve was it Jose Villeneuve.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
how you say it. Yeah, Villeneuve.
yeah.
Yeah,
He. What did he do? He did Sicaro a couple years ago. He did Blade Runner 49, which I don't. I'm not here to argue if people like the movie or not,
yeah,
because at the end of the day, nobody in the higher ups gives a rat's ass what we like and what we don't like. Not a single one of these people care what we like. They're because we're so far beneath them. We're gonna buy the movie anyway. Richard Bay is basically, you were arguing the stupidity on the level of Trump. Richard
uh,
Bay is the stupidity on the level of Trump because he says the quiet parts out loud. That's the only difference between him and somebody like an exec from AT&T. He's like, "Yeah, everybody says that they don't like my Transformers movie, but you guys are going to see the movie anyway, aren't you?" And yeah, unfortunately, people did. You know what I'm saying? The
yeah,
explosions and everything. But they don't care about that. They care about what their peers say. They care about the Academy Awards and stuff like that, right?
yeah.
So this is kind of taken away from that. And by taking to finish up my point on what you were saying, to take this away, it's the way that it was done. It's not the idea that it was done, not that alone. It's the idea that they weren't even consulted. Because Patty Jenkins is fairly cool with it. Even Christopher Nolan, who doesn't have any horse in this race whatsoever, he says, "You know what? I want you guys to realize, you regular people out there, this is the way of the future. This is the way that they're going to continue doing these things." Why would they do that? Because they're trying to compete with Disney. Disney Plus just did their investor statement. All that stuff got out to the big execs like Warner Brothers and AT&T a little bit in advance what they were going to say, and they're like, "Dude, we need that kind of Disney money. Maybe we can do that with HBO Max. Maybe that's a possibility. Who knows what's going to happen with this Rona stuff, right?"
Yeah.
So
It,
they're
I
they're 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 basically a wounded animal struggling to survive, willing to chew off their own foot in order to get out of a bear trap.
well, we'll see. They're gonna have to pull a couple more miracles out of their butts because uh, to compete with Disney. I mean, I watched that. I actually spent a good part of the afternoon watching it live on the John Campia as Disney rolled out their shows, and I was blown away by how all the stuff that they're going to be bringing forward, and pretty much all of it's streamed. There's a couple, they have some movies, but I mean, there's Star Wars alone. I mean, wow. I mean, I'm so looking forward to the Acolyte and that the potential of Keanu Reeves in another Star Wars sequel. Wow, there's so much that Disney is really is good. It DC or pardon me, Disney appears to now maybe they won't because they make mistakes. God knows they made some mistakes on Star Wars, but even Kathleen Kennedy appears to have maybe learned some harsh lessons from the fiasco of the Star Wars sequels. And I'm really excited about what Disney has going for it. And AT&T, Warner Brothers, they have a lot of potential with the licensed property for DC. I just don't think that well, I shouldn't be too hard on them. I think they're doing some things with the DC properties, but I would argue that they're um, they're not utilizing the DC superhero universe to its fullest potential, and but and I don't think they've got the right type of creatives. They got the wrong people hired. They really do. The lack of a Kevin Feige like character in the DC universe, that the abject failure of Jeff Johns to be actually good at something other than comic book writing, that really hurt the Warner Brothers. I hate to say it, I love Jeff Johns, but I mean, who does Warner Brother have to go to really understand the DC universe? I mean, is there anybody that comes to mind that you could suggest?
Jim Lee, obviously, who's been behind absolutely all of this, and it's all screwed up. Again, Jim Lee, great artist, but it ends there. His accolades and my observations end there.
Yeah.
Every single time. "Hey, man, what's something great that you could" by the way, I agree with that statement wholeheartedly from Joe Fisher, like, yes. Um,
The Bay
I
Formers. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I mean, Leonard Nimoy and was in that with a couple other amazing people for crying out loud. That was amazing. Richard Stack and, oh, for crying out loud, who it's, Orson Welles. Orson Welles' final performance.
Yeah.
But, he played Unicron. So for me, I feel like, listen, you bring up another great point with Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige how can we describe Kevin Feige? He is a fan who knows the business, and he's going to do what it takes to try and do something right. And he'll make mistakes. He'll make mistakes. Of course he will. But I mean, he cares about what the fans say, right? And it's not just him. You got John Favreau there also
Yeah.
with Dave Filoni. Have you been watching The Mandalorian?
Oh yes. Yeah. I'm one episode behind. Um,
Oh, catch
but
up, dude.
yeah.
So the very first episode of this season, so chapter 9 or episode 1 of season 2, however you want to look at it,
Hmm.
they had the sand people walking in single file, just like Obi-Wan Kenobi talked about in the first Star Wars movie, not episode 1,
Hmm.
the original Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
the 1978 Star Wars. It said, "Oh, stormtroopers march side by side. Sand troopers, Tusken Raiders march single file so as to hide their numbers." And look, they did it in there. It's little, you'd figure innocuously stupid things like that that make the fans go, "Oh, that's amazing." Little things like that. Why? Because we're geeks, we're nerds, we're dorks, we're all the dumbasses who are like, superheroes rule. You know what I'm saying? And they do. So we see this, and it's a franchise, and like any franchise, who wants to see an episode, not just an episode, who wants to see a brand new Star Trek series that doesn't acknowledge that Captain Kirk or Picard or any of them were ever, there was no Starship Enterprise, there was nothing, just here's Star Trek. We're on this planet called Earth. There's no United Federation of Planets. None of that stuff exists, but we're going to call it Star Trek anyway.
Yeah.
Please name one person on the face of this planet who would say, "Oh, no, I like this idea," because you will not find that person. The only purpose for having a franchise is this thing called continuity.
Yeah.
And you don't see that in the DC comics. You
Preach it,
don't
brother.
see that in the DC movies. You don't see it anywhere that has Superman and Batman as the face that runs the place. And that's the thing that's killing me. They're really just too dumb to recognize. You've got Zack Snyder, who is not a fan of the comic books. Just because he says he is, he's lying. It's not true. He's not a fan he's a fan of something that Frank Miller did. And that's pretty much it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you only take one storyline or one writer who's ever done Daredevil before and you turn around and you start, oh, here's Daredevil. This is the Daredevil. No, it's not. That's not the only Daredevil. There are plenty versions of Daredevil. Don't wrap them up in just one character. So Snyder doesn't get it. Jenkins apparently does. Um, Jeff Johns does, but he doesn't have the skills to actually make it work in a movie, and he definitely doesn't have the people person powers because Ray Fisher, like his saga is pretty much finished at this point because Warner Brothers got in contact with him and put it out there. We apologize for the stuff that happened to you and the other actors on the set because it wasn't right what happened. They got rid of and they acknowledged it. They got rid of
Jeff.
Joss Whedon. They got like he's gone. He's gone. Maybe he'll come back sometime in the future, but for now, they booted him off of a project that he was currently doing because of his actions and whatnot. And one person was able to stand up and do that. Borg life, I'm saying. But like,
I,
who else do we have who's going to stand up and say, dude, this is wrong? So you got a Jose Villeneuve who just says, listen, this is wrong. This isn't right. We were promised this. We want to do this. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the other actors. We want to put this stuff out there and we want to get accolades for the project that we've done. And what do we actually get instead? We get a company scrambling to stay ahead of itself. And it's obvious to all of us that it's failing. There's no reason for you and I to have this I mean, let's be realistic. In the face of a giant like AT&T, they would never recognize us in their shadows. You know what I'm saying?
No.
But let's be realistic. If they gave this warning only half an hour or so, but they gave this warning to Patty Jenkins. So that obviously shows that they care. They gave this warning to um Gal Gadot. They gave a warning or some kind of, not
Heads
accolades,
up.
some kind of heads up, yeah, to Zack Snyder, who doesn't even have a dog in this race.
Right.
It gave the acknowledgement, even if only about a half an hour prior, to certain people, but to others, like Villeneuve, they're just like, screw that guy. And that says a lot. Here, you were talking about power. You don't need to go to the Bible if you don't. You could, but you can go as simple as this. Go to Abraham Lincoln. Oh no, was it? I think it was Abraham Lincoln. He says if you want to test the mettle of a man, give him a little bit of power, just a little bit. That's all it takes. See how he treats his peers, and that's how you'll know if this is a person worth his merit. And somebody in the chat, please verify if that was Lincoln or not. It might have been somebody else.
Yeah. But yeah, you said so much there. The one that
I said too
rings
much.
true with me the most is the importance of continuity. I've and Disney has clearly understood how badly they blundered the sequels. There's even talk now how they're actually going to undo the sequels. There's
Yeah.
been there. Okay, I know it's just a rumor. There's lots of rumors, but the fact that it's even a rumor, it's this doesn't surprise. It's not a big deal to comic collectors like you and I. We're used to reboots, and as a matter of fact, I was just uh, in research for a topic that we will at some point be discussing. I remember reading there's a number of storylines that the comic book companies have specifically rebooted and undone because they didn't like fan reception, because they got bad press, and
Yes.
and it's with Star Wars, the rewards you get when you have such a huge fan base, when you get it right, you cannot put a price tag on it. But Disney is putting a price tag on it. They know what the price tag is, and it's billions and billions of dollars. And you know, I I still say that it's really tragic with Jeff Johns. It sounds as if, unfortunately, I don't know the details, and nobody really knows the details. It sounds like he was really a jerk. Joss Whedon was a jerk as well, and maybe their careers are ruined because of that, at least insofar as movies are concerned. But I still maintain that I refuse to believe. I refuse to believe that finding another Kevin Feige is impossible. I just don't believe it. Kevin Feige's experience wasn't that vast before he did Iron Man. Please stop with that. He had experience, but there's a lot. I can't believe there isn't somebody out there with any kind of producing experience who's got a love for DC Comics. Really? I mean, I just can't believe that. It just boggles my mind. And the continuity that you could, the sad part about DC, what Warner Brothers has got repeatedly wrong is they put too much power into Snyder. And by the way, I think they're putting way too much power into Patty Jenkins. I think it's a good thing she's not going to be directing a third Wonder Woman movie when it comes out.
Well,
The
she's
people,
not?
uh, or is she going to be? I thought she
Yeah,
wasn't,
she is.
or is it just one
She's gonna
more, or just one
she's
more
gonna
Wonder
do
Woman?
one more. She's gonna do Wonder Woman 3.
Okay, fair enough. Uh, that will keep things tonally consistent, but you still have to have. I mean, you still need to look to Disney. Look, when your competition is doing something that's making you look stupid, start doing what your competition is doing. Swallow your
Yeah.
pride and get your get your shit together and create a universe that has continuity, that has connectivity, that has consistency, and do not hire directors that want to do absolutely everything their own way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I'm
big time.
sorry.
Marvel got rid of a lot of those people. A lot of people who others were complaining about. Who was the original guy for Ant-Man? The original Ant-Man movie. I forget his
Uh,
name now.
ah,
Jeffrey Wright, was it?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. whoever it was, I can't remember exactly his I think that might have been him, but if not, anyway, they got rid of him and he's beloved. A lot
Yep.
of people like, "Oh, how can you get rid of him?" Dude, it's not about you. Honestly, the fans and whatnot, please stop, sit down. We really have to stop thinking that we're intelligent enough to fan cast. Because what are we gonna do? This person looks like him, they could do it. Ronda Rousey looks like one of the baddest ass people in the world. We know that she's a horrible actress. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Um, I I wouldn't wanna get into a fight with her. I would love for her to train me, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's great at some of the things she does, but not at everything she does, so, no, I don't wanna see her as Wonder Woman or something like that. I don't wanna see stuff like that, right? What I wanna see is people who are gonna say, "What do you want? Okay, here's my vision, what do you think?" Instead of just, "No, no, 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 no. I know better than everybody." Because these are the people who are actually sociopathic or at least have sociopathic tendencies. And I know this is something that some people hype or harp on a lot, but the actual definition of being a sociopath or on that, there's no necessarily spectrum
Yeah.
for being a sociopath, but that sort of idea is nonconformity. A lot of us want to be able to say, hey, I dare to walk on the other side of the road. Yeah, well, you better look both ways before you cross because there's heavy traffic. You know what I'm saying? People who people who act outside of normal, I don't know, behavior, like when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? If you can't do that, if you literally can't, it means that you're incapable of recognizing the social cues that we give to each other. A disapproving glance or something. If someone's, acting up too much and somebody gives you a look like, uh, that's a social cue to, hey, we don't do that here,
Yeah.
right? And that's the bottom, that's the minimalist part of this. It goes so much higher than this. People taking it to a side and it's like, "Hey, listen, maybe try such and such and such." It's something, and if we can't take those, it shows there's something inherently wrong with you. And like, I'm gonna harp a lot on Snyder. Snyder literally doesn't get either because here's this guy who clearly interacts with the fans a lot, but he's also clearly in a bubble where he's only interacting with the fans who agree with him.
Mm.
And I can be a Zack Snyder fan, but I'm more of a comic book fan. And while I love the cinematic, of what he does in his movies, I despise his representation of those characters, including in The Watchmen.
Yeah.
And it's so I kind of went off a little bit on that because what you're
Well,
saying, but go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, the thing is with Snyder is that they, I agree that they put too much stock. I actually enjoyed Man of Steel. I was actually the one of the few who I got emotional with Batman v Superman. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I don't need to see a Justice League remake, or I don't need to see Snyder's remade Justice League. Am I going to watch it? Of course I am. Am I going to be excited? Yes, I will. Do I? I would rather of them have put that $50 million or $100 million or whatever they're paying for it. I don't need to see the same movie that's revamped 2 hours longer or 4 hours longer so I can see Cyborg developed as a character because, quite frankly, Justice League is an example of what didn't work. And by the way, the reason why Justice League was released so fast is because one of the AT&T executives wanted to release it so he would get a bonus in that year. That was one of the incentives, which is
Hmm.
another thing which greatly upset me. This idea of, I mean, I'm not saying that greed wasn't a factor in movie making before, but again, it's another huge PR disaster for AT&T. But in any event, the fact of the matter is that there is no vision here. Warner Brothers, AT&T, like I don't even know what to call them anymore. It's AT&T, Warner Brothers, DC. I mean, they gotta figure out their brand name. They gotta pick a name
That
and stick
mess
to it.
over there.
Exactly. They gotta come up with a new name. They gotta come up with a better name because we got Disney. Disney's cool. Marvel's a cool name, right? AT&T. What? They don't even seem to care that they're a telecommunications giant and that they sound like a corporation, for God's sakes. I mean, good Lord. They have an identity crisis right now. They don't know who they want to be. I mean, and they don't even know what they want their content to be, and they don't even know what they want their comic books to be, and they can't. They're firing everybody. They're letting everybody go. The ones they're keeping, they're treating with disrespect. They're keeping everybody in the dark. except for a select few. It is a complete gong show. And there's no excuse for the pandemic. The pandemic, as a matter of fact, I can tell you this as somebody who works on enough contracts to tell you that I got, you know, the pandemic is actually taking away excuses for incompetence. I mean, you're sitting behind a desk. Half the comic book writers in interviews are saying Tom King, a whole slew. They're saying that they're farther ahead. They've got stories in the bag going. They're farther ahead now than they ever been in their careers because of the pandemic. You write movies for a living. You can sit down. You got plenty of time to do movies. There's no excuse for being out of ideas. And here we
Yeah.
have AT&T, and it's almost like they're sitting there. They're just trying to figure out another way to make more money, to screw the public out of more money. Meanwhile, Disney is there. This is why Disney blows me away so much. I'm so impressed with them. They they came out with ideas, and they said it. They said this is about quality. This isn't about quantity. And of course, they're comparing themselves to Netflix. Disney wants to distinguish themselves from Netflix, right? We're not Netflix. We don't just throw crap at a wall and hoping something sticks. No, this is all quality. They got it. They understand it. And then they copied Apple's presentation. It's not as good as an Apple presentation, but Disney, they had different people speak. And when it ends with Kevin Feige and the Marvel Universe, I mean, everything they did, they absolutely nailed it. And it's about PR because you create goodwill. And AT&T hasn't done that. Dan Didio, say what you will about the guy, but he was a good face for DC Comics insofar as he had a passion for comics. So even though I might have had issues with Dan Didio, I never doubted his love for the medium. I always knew that it was coming from a good place. Dan Didio and I could disagree with his point of view, but I love the man's passion, and that's what AT&T is losing. They figure they can. You can't just throw crap at a wall when you're trying to solve a problem. Creative people are known to be eccentric. They have high opinions. We know this because we see on Twitter some of these creative types get into Twitter wars and they say things that are stupid and they get themselves in trouble. But at the end of the day, I expect that. They're creative types. But they have a place and you got to respect them. And when you disrespect them like AT&T has been disrespecting their publishing division, disrespecting their film division, I mean, I don't know. They've got to do something different. You cannot solve a problem with the same parts that make up the problem. And that's
Yeah.
what AT&T is doing. And that's my fear for their comic books. Okay, so they fired a bunch of people. And so what if they're doing? Well, if we're going to get a new slate of writers that are consisting of the old writers just on different titles, I'm not really sure how that's fixing the problem, but we shall see.
Yeah, it's a strange way to look at things, but it's like if you walk into a meeting, you're scheduled, you got an appointment for a meeting, you walk in there, or even a job interview, and the other guy, the person who's conducting the meeting, has his feet up on the desk, or he's on the phone, or he's writing, and just says, basically sit down and just wait. Saying, I'm finishing up what I'm doing. Whatever I'm doing is more important than you. This is that kind of disrespect that I see. Like I, s- like I said, and I think you're being more eloquent than I am today. I think my mind is just kind of all over the place. The idea that some directors, writers, actors are getting the first class red carpet kind of treatment where it's like, hey, listen, I'm coming to you and I'm just saying this stuff because, sorry, we're trying to do what we can. And other ones are just saying, why would I even deign to speak with this person? It says a lot about the people who are in charge. Uh, I'm the idea that it's like being reactionary. And I don't care in what field you're in. You know what I'm saying? If you can't get in front of a problem, then all you're doing is you're plugging your finger into little cracks in the dam, over there, and pretty soon you're gonna run out of fingers, right? So they're being reactionary with everything, and and they've been this way before. Like you said, that they need to start doing what Disney is doing. Okay, so Warner Brothers, they say, okay, Marvel has a shared universe. Let's make a shared universe also. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. It's deeper than the heart. You can't just do the surface level stuff, but that's what they try to do, and they showed it failed. So in their mind now, yeah, that shared universe thing isn't working because they were going to try that with the Universal Studio Monsters also. They're going to try to have a shared universe there with
Yeah.
Tom Cruise leading it, and it's like, no, that's you can't just surface level this. So these are people who are not bothering to try and understand a problem better. And like you said, with the pandemic, when I was in the military, we used to say every plan falls apart when it goes to the field. You could sit there and write the best plans, the best laid strategies and whatnot.
Mm.
But when you actually go out on the field and we get to see, were you counting on the morale of the troops at the moment? Were you paying attention to the weather, which will affect morale? Were you paying attention to the terrain and how steep or depressed it is? Are you paying attention to the conditions around? Are you paying attention to the upkeep and the maintenance of the equipment or the equipment that's being issued? Are you relying on the communication that we have with each other, or are you actually giving the information to us to begin with? Plans are really cute, like, "Oh, go over there, beat up the bad guy, and we win the day." No, that's not the way that anything works. So
It's sort
they
of
they
like Mike Tyson said, every fighter's got a plan until he gets hit in the face.
it's a great quote. It's a fantastic quote. And they refuse to actually sit down and assess everything.
Mm.
Instead, they're just this huge corporate conglomerate that everybody is beneath them. They're an umbrella company. They say, "We own this, we own this, we own this. Hey, how are you guys doing? Well, do better. Do you have any suggestions? Yeah, do better." And when they can't, they just start firing people. And you're hoping that the new blood is going to come in. And it is throwing it, in engineering, we call it the shotgun method.
Mhm.
You know what a shotgun is? It's buckshot. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, there's a fly in the wall. Boom! I'm pretty sure I got him.
Yeah. No.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just you can't operate a business that way.
I if there is a theme here, there is a lesson to be learned, and I really hope that AT&T learns it. And the lesson here is, and this is something that they should have picked up on uh, at a minimum, well, 5 years ago with the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but certainly now, and that is the importance of taking your time. I mean, you're never too late to a start a legacy. The way to build a loyal fan base is through continuity. Tell a good story, and then when you tell the next one, have some links to the previous story. Legacy grows. Legacy is built on continuity, and one movie can lead to the next. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, it it worked because each individual movie was a story in and of itself, yet at the same time, collectively it formed a beautiful whole narrative. That is a masterpiece. Dan Didio himself said at the New York Comic Con a couple years ago that the Marvel Comics Cinematic Universe, he was jealous of it because they did comic books better than comic book publishing did comic books, and they were doing it in the movies. Each individual movie was a self-contained story, and yet it was one massive big event, all 22, 23 movies. That is
They
something.
were taking those stories from back when you and I used to read comic books when we were kids too, didn't they?
There you go. There you go. And it's not too late for the DC Universe to do that. It's not even too late for Paramount to put lipstick on the pig of their monster movies, if you want to be blunt about it. I was actually looking
Agreed.
forward to that. I thought that they could
Yeah.
save that myself. They just gave up. Shame on them. You can't give up. If there's one lesson to be garnered from comic books, is never give up. Because in DC and Marvel, you can't avoid your continuity. If you have a bad story, you got to undo it somehow. You don't have the luxury of ignoring it. Oh my God, we got the Clone Wars. We just made a clone of Spider-Man. What are we going to do? You're going to have to undo it. The story might suck, but you have to do it. The fans demand it. And if you reward the fans and you give them what they want, they will love you for it. Even if it's a dog's breakfast, bring back the status quo if the fans want it. They look at Star Wars. We're getting Easter eggs in Mandalorian, and Mandalorian is only $15 million an episode. And when you compare the Mandalorian to the CBS's Star Trek, CBS Star Trek, They've invested $500 million for 3 years of Star Trek Discovery, and it's been a disaster as far as I'm concerned. And they're not following continuity. Whereas Disney, with $15 million an episode for 16 episodes so far of Mandalorian at $240 million, at half the price that CBS has put out for Star Trek Discovery. Look how much more successful Disney has been with Mandalorian. They've gotten, like, they're going to be hitting 80 million subscribers, as opposed to CBS's Peasley haven't even hit 20 million subscribers yet. All because of continuity, the love for story, and understanding that when you have fans that love the story, you don't allow some director to come along. I mean, Favreau and Filoni have one thing in common. They love Star Wars. I mean, listen to Filoni talking about Star Wars. It's beautiful. It's like poetry. In Filoni's mind, everything makes sense. It's beautifully symmetrical. Everything, all the character motivations and flow into the other. And he's the only guy I know who made the prequels actually sound interesting.
So you did hear that. It's evident to me. You've heard his conversation about
Qui-Gon.
the Duel of the Fates.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've never heard it stated that way before.
Me
But
neither.
yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. Love, passion, and for story and the continuity and the subject matter, you're gonna have that. It's not too late for AT&T to put lipstick on the pig of Warner Brothers right now. But they just have to start somewhere, and they need to start by hiring somebody that's passionate about it, and not somebody who's going to be divisive. If Jeff Johns was a disaster, if Josh Whedon was a disaster, okay, fine, you made a poor choice, but don't stop looking, because it's pretty sad when you and I follow this stuff all the time, and we can't think of anybody that can. I can't believe they can't find a Kevin Feige for the DC universe. It's so frustrating to me.
Yeah, they can find somebody. When you got that kind of money, it doesn't even require that much time. You could just throw some money at it and hire a think tank. Actually get a genuine think tank together, an R&D team to just say, listen, how should we actually do this? Like to me this isn't hard. And I mean, I've done business internationally, I'm saying I've in multiple continents, saying, and I know this is not difficult. And I know there's no way I'm going to get a job at DC. I don't know that I would want to get a job at DC or freaking Warner Brothers, I'm saying, get fired too quickly.
Yeah.
But for me, it's as simple as you hire a think tank and you let them go out and do their research, bring the research back, and then just actually start hashing it out. This could be done inside of a lousy month. And we've got nothing but time right now. And you figure out what are all the problems? What are all the bottlenecks that we have? Hey, uh, uh, the streaming service, HBO Max, it's only available in the US. Fix that. What do we need to do to fix that? Get a team on that now. Boom, think tank, do it, fix it, whatever, do it, right? Hey, people aren't, not enough people, not nearly enough people are enjoying the Snyderverse right now. Okay, appease those fans and then actually start putting together something different. Why did they like Aquaman and Wonder Woman and Shazam? Figure that out and boom, put it together, make more movies following a similar. But what's working at Marvel that isn't working here? How come their shared universe is working but ours isn't? This isn't rocket science to me. So, and I know this because I've actually done rocket science, kind of. I've,
Yes, you
I've,
have.
I went down twice to Cape Canaveral, and I actually helped to put 2 of my satellites up in a geosynchronous orbit. So I'm saying I've got a little bit of experience with rocket science. Okay, the point is, it's not rocket science. It's easier than that. I've never done brain surgery, so I don't know if it's the same as that.
Well, I'm going to. We're coming up on an hour here, and so I'm just going to give my final comment, and I'll ask you to give some final comments yourself, Professor. My final comment is going to be that I'm going to delve a little bit into identity politics and how divisive it can be, and how so many of these movie studios and publishing companies, all this stuff about identity politics, and we have to be diverse, and we got to hire a certain amount of this or that color and that color. I'm 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 just going to say this, that isn't it interesting that Mandalorian, which is probably arguably the least diverse in terms, it's just good storytelling. It's just good storytelling. it's not exactly, they're not really so worried about hiring different, you know, different, we got to change the gender here, change that. It's interesting that when you just tell a good story and people enjoy the story, people don't tend to focus on who the actor is or who the actress is or everything else. It's just people are loving Mandalorian because the story is just really good. And that's what I like about it. And everyone I know who loves comic books, you know, I, I just I just find that pop culture sometimes, when the fan base is really upset, it's because the stories are terrible. And if the stories are terrible, and especially if the stories are really bad because you're forcing a character into a position, or you're changing a particular character outside the standard version of that character, you're courting disaster. And I know I'm saying something potentially controversial, but I'm just saying that, you know, just going back, sometimes you don't need to change the gender or the hair color or anything else. You can just tell the story you want to tell, stick to the source material, and introduce new characters along the way. But as long as you got your core base, everything's going to be fine. And that's my final comment on that.
Your final comment is like completely different from the subject of which we were talking about.
Well, no,
Like that's really weird.
I just felt that Mandalorian is part of its success is because it's not. I just find that it's not courting the controversy of the Star Trek Discovery and a lot of these other these big productions where there's these other controversies that deal with the deals with gender and deals with these other things. Mandalorian just seems to be a just seems to be a really good story, and it seems to have avoided controversy if people are talking about it for the right reasons. And I think it's another lesson to be learned by the powers that be, and I'm pretty sure they're learning it. And well, anyways,
So you don't want this to become a new topic for us to talk about now? You would talk about another
well,
time or
we
something?
can talk about it now. I don't care.
Oh, okay. Um, Here, I there are many, many, many points that I agree with you on that, but I also look at it this way. Could The Mandalorian do better if they did bring other characters into it? But if they did it the right way. Mind you, we're at the beginning stages. I don't subscribe to the SJW idea because they're just too extremist to me. I also don't conform to the far right mentalities because they're just too damn extremist for me. I like just being able to think about everything and, what is my how do I feel about it, whatever. Being in a mixed marriage, I know that there are a lot of things that I'll watch and I'll be like, this is the greatest thing ever. But every so often I come across something, I'm just like, this is the greatest thing ever. My wife's like, it doesn't appeal to me in the slightest. And I'm like, really? Why? And she's like, where am I in this? I'm like, okay, I hear you. Huh. But at the same time, just saying, well, here you are. Okay, so we'll take Star Trek Discovery because my wife loves Star Trek Discovery. And a problem that I have more than she does, but she's seeing my point more and more, is they have two gay characters. One is a main character, one is just his boyfriend. That's the only purpose this person serves is his boyfriend. And then they have this third character who's I don't know what now it's a they. It used to be a she, now it's a
Yeah,
they.
I
The whole
know.
thing like it's and I would be okay with this if there was more story than just their identity there. The problem is there is none. The only purpose for these people to be there is because of their identity. They
Yep.
don't add anything to the story of the crew. They don't add or take anything away from they actually take more away because like let's devote a little bit here's the pandering segment. Let's go below the ship, away from the crew, away from the general,
Yeah.
what's the captain's deck, the main
Yeah.
deck. Let's just get someplace down in engineering. That's where all of this basically the crap that nobody
Yeah.
cares about. Let's just throw the crap down there to pander to this audience.
Yeah.
And I understand that when you're given scraps and you're starving, you're like, okay, I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? But I think that the LGBTQ plus community deserves a lot better than just, "I would like to be called a they now." "Would you? You know what? I think that I'm gonna call you they then because I think it's only the proper thing to do." I think that's the basics of human, like, "I would like you, hi, my name is Bill, I'd like you to call me Bill." "Now you look like a Bob to me, I'm gonna call you Bob." Like, "Wow, you're an asshole."
Yeah,
Likewise, if someone says, "I'd prefer you to call me they or she or he or whatever," just freaking do it and who cares? And if
yeah,
you make a mistake, correct yourself. It's not that big of a deal. Like that's all that has to be. Now, can these people actually engage with the rest of the crew and contribute to the story instead of just being, here's a different segment,
yeah. I
right? Like it feels like romper room.
Yeah, thank you. You did a much better job making my point than I did. That's for sure. And you nailed it. It was an excellent example. I do think the two gay characters, the one, the engineer, and his I guess his husband, the
Husband, yeah.
doctor, uh, they're actually, I think they're decently fleshed out characters, and they're actually displayed as being competent and very good at what they do. At least in,
Competent, yes. I don't think that they're even that fleshed out. The main the husband died. Oh, and it's a mixed relationship too, because the one guy is, he's a person of color. I don't know if he's black or whatever, but anyway, like here's this guy. It's like I say to my wife, "It's like, so has anything happened with these guys?" It's like,
uh,
"Oh yeah, the husband died, but he got better. He came back." I was like, "What is he, a fucking X-Men? He got better?
yeah,
What does that mean? Are they exploring the story? No, they're not." So this guy dies, but now he's back, and it's just, "Oh, let's go and talk to this." I guess this would be considered a trans person. I don't know like what they're trying to do with this. It's like this guy died and came back. Why aren't we exploring that?
yeah. I know. I know.
Nobody else on the ship cares. Why the hell should I?
I know John Burnett is his. I listen to his YouTube channel, and he's quite hard
With
on
this?
Star Trek. Uh, I think it's John Burnett's his name.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I
Robert
know
Robert
the person.
Burnett, I think it is. He
Okay.
does the Rob. He does. I think he has his own version of Robservations. He calls it his YouTube channel. But in any event, he thinks that it's all. He has the same criticisms that there's a great deal of incompetence in forced writing, and there's a lot of pushing of identity politics as opposed to just a competent story. I will say this: one thing that drives me crazy, that redheaded, that the most incompetent, annoying character on Star Trek Discovery that ruins the story is
Oh,
that redhead. That
yes.
she's sort of that chubby redhead, and I'm not. I say that to describe her, not to insult her weight. Okay, just for the record. And I don't. She and what I hate about it is
No.
there's.
No. Let's hold on. I wanna go into that because I do want to insult her weight. So this is the future where we're not all about. No, I'm serious with this
Okay,
because I've
yeah,
had this conversation
I
with my
think I know
wife.
where you're going with this. Yeah,
Yeah. We're in the future and we haven't figured out that being that heavy is unhealthy. Like, I'm sorry. Look, there are lots of people who struggle with weight. I struggle with weight. I exercise, not like a demon, like I used to
yeah,
when I was younger, but I struggle with weight. I will have a spare tire if I don't exercise, if I sit around too much. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
My wife struggles with weight. Our kids are probably going to struggle with weight because we both, have this, but I mean, like, it's a thing. It is what it is. And it's like, this is the future. And she's just getting bigger. And it's not, I mean, I think she's still a pretty character. I'm not taking that away from her, but like, why? We live in a world nowadays where we're afraid to say that weight is unhealthy. Hey, I still
Yeah.
love you. You're a person, whatever, but like, I don't even consider it tough love. It doesn't have to get anywhere near the
Well,
level of tough love to say that's not healthy. Because a person who's going to chain smoke or even smoke at all, I'm going to say, dude, that's not healthy.
well,
Like,
I won't disagree with you on that. I will add to that that not only can you say that about should in the future you would expect they would be able to tell that to somebody who is overweight, especially if they're going to be in a major position on a starship, which they take the best of the best, at least in packs. If you're going to follow continuity in Star Trek, and we've talked a lot about the importance of continuity here, so we have to have competency in the Starfleet personnel. But there was that episode, and I'm watching them a little bit. I'm behind 2 or 3 episodes, but the latest one I watched is that redhead one. I don't know what her
yeah.
rank is, lieutenant or whatever. She was
Oh,
actually
she's
promoted.
apparently the ship's captain now.
Right.
Yeah, she was just
She was
promoted.
promoted, and she
She's
spent
ditzy as hell.
well, she's ditchy. She spent the entire episode with low self-esteem, looking. The entire crew had to literally have an intervention at the end of the episode to prop her up, and then the two gay guys are sitting there like they're at some sort of bridal shower, showering her with compliments because you're not as I mean, like this is not a woman that should be a captain. Like, is this like what kind of
This is
show are
not a
they trying to put
person.
on here?
This is not a person who should be a captain. Like, at
Exactly.
the end of the day, look, this is a naval vessel. We do not promote based on it. Like, in the military, and it doesn't have to be a woman. If we if we have, like, I'm former military, former army, you know, saying if I had a captain who was in charge of our and he was promoted because it was nepotism, or he was promoted because, oh, he's just a nice person, like, this would never happen. And if we were ever led to war, I promise you this person would be fragged.
Yeah.
This person, which means we would find a way to kill this person, because it's not going to happen. We're not stupid. We're just not. I am not gonna sit here and have an intervention with somebody and say, "Hey, I know that if you just try really hard and believe in yourself, you cannot get us killed." No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna say, "You are an effing more." Now here comes tough love.
Yeah.
And it can go beyond tough love. Dude, you are a freaking moron. With all due respect, you don't even belong on this crew
Yeah.
because you have no confidence in yourself. You can't handle yourself. How can I put you in engineering if you crack under pressure like this? If
Yeah.
I yell down, "Hey, we need power to the dilithium
Uh,
crystals," or whatever the hell that is, you need to freaking act and not be like, "I don't think I can do it, Captain." I'm phasering you in the face, and you're
yeah.
relieved of duty. Like, you're
Yeah.
done. You're done. You're done. We're talking about a freaking naval vessel in space where, if you scream, no one can hear you scream. Like, no, no, we're not playing that game. This is the most ridiculous thing, and there is no hand holding. No, the people who enjoy this show is yours. I give it to you, and I'm not here to insult you, because you're allowed to like what you want to like, and I'm not going to insult what you like. But I will say that this is the most ridiculous and incompetent crew if the leader is a freaking moron.
Yeah.
And
No.
that's what she displays. She could be like, I would love to see that kind of a character just in life, trying to build herself up, trying to get to that level of becoming captain or something like. But you don't make someone a captain because, oh, she's been here since the first episode. So
Yeah.
no, this kind of person does not get promoted. That's
Yeah.
not what happens,
He's.
especially not in any branch of the
I,
military.
I forget that woman, that redhead's name in that show, but she's like the Jar Jar Binks of Star Trek. She really is. But and I
Yeah.
use Jar Jar Binks as a specific example because would as if do you think that Star Wars Mandalorian would ever have a character on their show as incompetent as even the most competent as the one on Star Trek Discovery? They wouldn't, because they would get a backlash. Star Trek experienced that backlash with Jar Jar Binks, and they said, we are never going to have an incompetently stupid character that's clearly an idiot on Star Wars again. We're going to insult the fans because Jar Jar Binks was an insult to the story and the fans. They found out the hard way. And then here we have Star Trek Discovery, virtually, and the redhead's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, she's one of the worst cases, but virtually everyone on that episode in some way or another, they spend so much time in their angst. There's too much of a focus on the angst, not realizing that in order to raise to a certain level of competence, and I'm not in the military like yourself, you can attest for this, but military, in order to rise to the ranks, you have to display a certain amount of mental toughness and abilities to perform under pressure. And this sort of school, first grade level emotional instability is astonishing for a show. I can't get into the story because I'm disgusted and repulsed by how pathetic some of these characters are. It's just it's an embarrassment. And then you go to something like Mandalorian with a far more simplistic plot. Mandalorian has a simple plot with just basic characters. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and I'm 1,000 times more entertained. Whereas Star Trek Discovery is ridiculous characters that are weak, pathetic, angst-ridden, emotionally unstable people, but they got great special effects. Star Trek Discovery is great special effects, but over the top special effects. Too much special effects, not enough strength of character.
One of the problems that I had with the most recent episode, and you'll have to see it, you're gonna see that Din Djarin you said you didn't see the most recent episode. Din Djarin, the Mandalorian,
Yeah.
he runs into a moment where he doesn't know what to do, and he has to be saved, and even though it was still a really good episode, it's just like that right there, it's like, dude, the guy takes off his helmet and then he's incompetent? Like, this is this deals with a lot of, the mask theory, like, when you
Right.
wear a mask, you're a different person,
Right.
um, yeah, okay, so,
Right.
there's enough stories, like Lord of the Flies is one of them. But for me,
Mm.
like, look, in the military, we are all still human. We all of us, we can have those levels of angst, and having those are fine if you have someone you can trust, but you don't have them in public. When you have them in public, that's when you're immediately removed from duty. It's like, dude, get like, it would be immediate, "Get off my bridge.
Yeah.
You're
No.
done here." I understand those levels of angst, and I appreciate those. I think they'd be great, but there's a place for them. And if the entire crew has to have an intervention, I think that the whole crew, everybody on that ship is incompetent for saying, because basically what they're saying is, hey, listen, you're the person who's basically going to make the life or death decisions for all of us. But we believe if you try really hard, you won't get us killed.
Yeah.
No, that's not there's nobody who's that stupid in real life, future, past, present, whatever. There's nobody who's that stupid. So
Yeah.
this is not a kumbaya session.
Yeah.
This is not hand holding. I don't want to see that this is what do you call it, girls version of Star Trek, because no, Captain Janeway is
Yeah.
girls version of Star Trek. She was badass to the bone, and
Yeah.
she had her moments of weakness, and she would deal with them with Chakotay. She'd deal with them with Seven of Nine. She'd deal with them on the freaking holodeck if she wanted to with Leonardo da Vinci. She'd deal with them in any way she could. She had her moments of weakness. And then when she was in front of everybody, she was strong. And god damn it,
Yeah.
that's the reason why she's my favorite captain. Because she
Yeah.
did show emotional, insecurities sometimes, but not when it counted. And this person is the epitome of incompetence.
I agree with everything you
Itsy
said.
redhead, whatever her name is.
Yeah, I love Janeway. My heart's still with Kirk, but I you make a convincing argument for Janeway. And
Yeah,
just in defense of Mandalorian, at least with Mandalorian, since his mask, his helmet is such a central part of his psyche, and is part of it that. So I can it there is a lot of verisimilitude in the idea that if he takes his mask off, he's maybe a little insecure. I can
yeah.
believe that. That has believability to it since it's such a central part of his being. So at least with Mandalorian, I can buy into some of that because it's you've earned that. We've learned something about the character. The mask that helmet is a central part of who he is. And so if he displays some uncomfortableness or discomfort when it's off, and he feels a little bit insecure, unsafe, I can buy into that. I have not seen the episode, but I mean, just hearing it, I can right away in my head, I can see. Well, I can see him being a little uncomfortable. You know.
You know what? That's a really good point, and yeah, it's helping me to reconcile with it a lot more. That actually does make a lot of sense. So,
Well, maybe we should end with me making
yeah.
sense.
I think there's a really good place to end. This feels a lot better, yeah.
All
And Joe
right.
Fisher's comment is freaking hysterical.
Which one?
The last one on there
About
where he
being
says,
bald.
"We're in the future." I said that, in the future you can't have. It's not about finding. For me, it wasn't about finding a cure for being overweight. For me, it's about the idea that if you're on this, ship, you are supposed to be some of the best of the best. That you would have more willpower than to. Because I know, like, look, a lot of people struggle with weight, but that struggle for the most part is willpower. It really is, because if you don't put the energy into your body, you don't have the larger body. It's just like I know there's people like, no, if I smell food, I get bigger. That's a funny joke, but it's simply not real. You know what I'm saying? It's just not. If you smell cigarettes, do you get? Well, actually, you do. But so that's a bad example. But you can't like smell weed and get high, right? So no, I don't. No, it's about willpower, and this is a very weak character who I just believe does not belong on this show. Not like this.
Yeah.
Just fix things. So
I
yeah,
had I had well, it's nice to find a kindred spirit about Star Trek Discovery because I actually Full disclosure, I actually enjoyed the mirror universe of the first season. I thought that was a cool concept. I had some
Mm.
issues with the way it played out, but I actually thought it was a pretty cool idea. I just kind of wish they would go with it. But rumor has it in future episodes, the mirror universe, that that one person that I forget her name, the
Michelle Yeoh?
yeah, Michelle Yao, she's going to be returning to
She's
the
my
mirror
favorite
universe.
part of that show.
Yeah,
She's my I didn't see the most recent episode, and my wife was like, "The part this was mostly focused on her, and you're gonna love that part of the episode. Like, you're gonna love." So I'm like, "I gotta see it.
good. Well, I
Gotta
got to
see
watch it.
it."
I got a bunch taped, but
Nice.
Um, on that note, thank you, Professor, for taking the time to just having this totally impromptu live stream. And we had a massive script at the beginning, which was my fault. I'm still learning, it appears, the ins and outs of my Ecamm Live, but that is my fault, not the program's fault, as it usually is. Blame the programmer,
Operator
not the
error.
program. All right,
Operator error is one of my favorite terms.
yeah.
Alright. Thanks
All
for
right,
having me, brother.
guys. All right, I'll catch you guys later, and we're gonna try to go out with this one. No, not that one. We're gonna go out. I was gonna try a different intro, but
Operator error.
operator error. Oh no. Oh no.